Welcome to Breeze TV. I'm joined with Jessani Collier, who's the incoming SGA president. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So as we're going into summer, do you have any plans when coming into the fall and addressing JMU's diversity and inclusion?
Yes, so I was offered a job at Tim Miller's office. I am incredibly excited for this position. And basically I will be trying to work over the summer on how to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also accessibility, because I feel like that's always overlooked, into classrooms, and how we can look at often overlooked aspects of the university. I've taken a keen interest into FSL, which is like fraternity sorority life. I feel like a lot needs to be done to include that aspect of diversity, equity, inclusion into their curriculum, or not their curriculum, but like their mission statement. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the overall topic, but I'm really excited to I'm really looking forward to working alongside administration and faculty and addressing this, and how I can kind of be that liaison between the students and these marginalized communities, and also kind of making sure that they're adequately represented in these spaces as well. Because I can't speak on behalf of the LGBT community as like a cis woman. And also I'm just overall really excited to do that.
And as you're working in Tim Miller's office, how do you think this will help increase transparency between JMU administration and then students, faculty, and parents?
Okay, so I'm really excited about this. One of my duties in this position is to kind of work to make sure that students are kind of more familiar with Alger and also Tim Miller. I feel like students really want to, I feel like Tim Miller has definitely tried his best to reach out to students, and he's had lunch with so many students, which is amazing. But I would love to see that same energy be reciprocated on behalf of Nick Langridge and President Alger and other executive members who are involved in the president's cabinet, because I think it's a matter of how can we make them more accessible to the students to increase that transparency. Because students are demanding that transparency, they want to know what's happening. I just think that the issue kind of relies more on behalf of administration, and how we can get senior leadership to reach out to more students, whether that be programs like seeing them on the quad, having them work alongside communities and organizations with students and kind of understand their problems. Because you can't always expect the students to come to you, and that's what I've learned in my campaign period running for student body president. You can't wait for students to come to you. You have to be the one, as a leader, you have to be the one to go to the students and say, what can I help you with? What concerns do you have? And I really want to figure out how I can do that and kind of draft some ideas. I mean, like I said, a really great idea that I have is kind of bringing these senior leadership team members to students, to these marginalized communities, and kind of mobilizing them to get these ideas heard. That way they have adequate representation, and that we know that students' opinions are being heard and those concerns are being voiced.
And could you talk about your plans to kind of restructure SGA and how the pandemic and recent events against minority communities has impacted that?
I think that SGA needs to reform itself to a more collaborative organization, one where biases don't hinder our performance. I've been in a position myself where, this is the first time speaking out about this, where I felt where personal biases kind of affected myself, and I've seen that with other members too within the organization. Where it's also affected how work is able to be done in a collaborative setting, because SGA truly depends on the collaboration of its own members to get stuff done. That's how we advocate for the student body. So if we let those issues basically simmer, it's eventually going to rupture, it's going to boil, and we're not going to be able to move forward in a collaborative sense where we're able to advocate for the students and do our duties as we want to do. So that's one thing that I really want to reform SGA into doing. Another thing that I'm really excited about is I really want to reach out to different SGAs, different student councils within Virginia, and also kind of going beyond that in the national setting as well. I actually have a meeting with Abel Liu, who is the incoming student body president at UVA. That's next week, and we're doing that with our executive leadership team with Aaron Snell, Emily Butters, and Noah Pope. I'm so excited for that. Ava Liu is amazing. So I really want to kind of work on that as well, and also seeing how we can advocate for, I guess, just like the Harrisonburg community as well, and kind of how we can create or how we can fix the gap between administration, faculty, students, and then also beyond that going into the Harrisonburg community, because JMU and Harrisonburg itself are like, it's like a mutual relationship, you know. I don't want to get too technical with like biology. I can't remember if it's commensalism or mutualism, but you know, we depend on each other. We're interdependent, and so I kind of want to focus on how our own policies moving forward as JMU out of this pandemic, how we can advocate for also not just for ourselves as students, but also for the Harrisonburg community. And I feel like that's also incredibly crucial to understand. And another issue that's really popular within Harrisonburg, well, not really popular, but a hot topic, is the housing crisis in Harrisonburg, where basically, oh my gosh, like people that build these like apartments and like townhomes to rent for, that are created, well, I guess like the rent prices are like geared towards students, and a lot of people take advantage of that, like specifically people that, like landlords, they take advantage of that because they know that students have more access to money. They use our parents' money. We take out student loans, so they jack up these prices. But then for low-income households in Harrisonburg that aren't affiliated with the JMU community, don't really have adequate affordable housing. So that's something that I'm really passionate about and looking into how we can advocate to kind of stop that from happening. I don't really have an exact plan set because that kind of is out of our reach, but I would love to kind of mobilize the student body into advocating for those policies as well. And another thing that I'm very passionate about, I myself consider myself an activist, and I really want to kind of join more protests and more demonstrations to kind of show the strength and unity of these marginalized communities that exist on campus, because I feel like they're commonly overlooked. I mean, we can talk about them, but it's different when you have to bring them to the table. And the only way you can do that is to show strength and unity, strength and community.
About a week ago, you announced on your social media platform some initiatives that you have going into your presidency. And one of those is to create training sessions for JMU professors and how they should teach and address those a part of minority communities. Can you talk about your intentions behind that?
Yes, so it's kind of like the same process that we as students, as first years, kind of go into, where we come in for like Frog Week and 1787, where we have to like learn about diversity and like all these other aspects. And you know, we're also expected to be trained in a way when we first come to JMU. Like this is like, we introduce ourselves with our pronouns and all these other things. And I feel like actually I am very confident, and I maintain this belief, that administration and faculty need to be held at the same standard. If you're going to be teaching these students, you have to also come in with a diverse mindset that's also open-minded. So I want to look into how, and I've also talked to like a bunch of other orgs where I feel like we can train, because I didn't know this, but teaching assistants, they have to go through a Title IX training. And I definitely think that what we could do is implement a training for them as well in tackling what to do when confronted with issues of like sexual harassment, sexism, homophobia, racism, like any form of bigotry, basically, because we're not trained to do that, and also professors aren't trained to do that as well. I don't think they actually understand how to de-escalate a situation when confronted with these awful instances, and that's something like I really want to look into doing.
And you also have a plan to create a student-organized mutual aid fund that will help lessen the economic burdens that minority communities and at-risk communities face. Can you talk about why you wanted to start this?
So I noticed that UVA actually did this, and this is also why I'm talking to Ava Liu about it, which I'm very passionate about. I basically, how do I phrase this? Like the economic burdens of the pandemic, like even though the pandemic, I'm sorry if I'm like,
no, you're good.
Okay. I'm just like trying to like make a continuous thought.
You're good.
But how do I phrase this? So, you know, coming out of this pandemic, you know, these vaccines give us a glimmer of hope. But we have to kind of acknowledge that these economic burdens that have been accumulated while like the pandemic has become like strung out. Those economic burdens won't necessarily go away, and students have to live with that as well. So I am kind of trying to figure out the logistics, but personally I would like to see a mutual aid fund where we can get students to donate and also kind of redistribute funds and reallocate funds from like SGA funding, and possibly like ask other organizations to donate their like rolled over money that they've received from contingency from SGA, and seeing how we can distribute those funds to low-income students who are at risk, just for like gas money or groceries. And also I know that Noah Pope, who is our executive treasurer, he was looking into kind of a similar program, but instead we'd be able to also help the Harrisonburg community and kind of give students like access or like money, like gift cards kind of. We don't know the logistics exactly, but kind of figuring out a way where we can give students access to money so they can like purchase from downtown stores, because a couple of stores from downtown have like basically died since the pandemic, which is awful. So we're kind of like figuring out the logistics of that, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that just because we're coming out of the pandemic, there's students here that need help. If they're low income, they're already struggling financially, and we can't expect them to succeed well at this school if they're facing these financial burdens.
And lastly, you plan to have JMU be carbon neutral by 2050. How do you plan to start this and then have it continue long after your presidency?
So, I hope I'm not here by 2050. I hope that I graduate. We will see. I'm not going to jinx it. But I have been a environmental research policy volunteer for Vine and Fig, which is a nonprofit in Harrisonburg. And they are currently working with the Harrisonburg City Council to figure out a way to make Harrisonburg itself carbon neutral. And it's totally feasible. It's just a matter of going through these contracts between like Dominion. We have our own electric HEC. It's either Harrisonburg Electric Communion, I can't remember the C word, but it's totally feasible. It's definitely going to be a long process, but I know it's possible. Virginia Tech has already done this, where they've pledged to be carbon neutral. It's just a matter of kind of setting out a plan, seeing what Dominion Energy is doing, because that's kind of where Harrisonburg and also like other municipalities get their energy from. So it's a matter of kind of focusing on what they're doing in the future, because I think they're trying to pledge to be carbon neutral. Don't quote me on that. That's kind of what I've remember from doing my research. But yeah, it's just a matter of kind of setting up a plan from now through 2050, and that's something that I'm trying to work on over the summer after finals week when I'm finally able to breathe. But yes, it's definitely an issue that I'm incredibly passionate about.
Thank you so much, Jessani, for joining us today.
No, thank you so much, Shelby, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Ian and Maddie, back to you.